I'm a guy that's 25. Lego Star Wars is my life. I like Ryan Johnson. I'm Rich Boy J. Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here, back in with another video, and this is going to be another episode of the Lego Star Wars MOC Showcase. This is the series where I basically take some of the best MOCs that I found on the internet and show them off to you guys, analyze them, do what I do. If there's one thing that you can take away from this video is if you like any of these builds, use the links I've included in the description and go support those builders. They certainly deserve it. The first MOC we'll look at today is by Rob Van Leeuwen. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. It is an AT-AT from Star Wars Rebels, what we would presumed to be one of the early variations of the AT-AT Walker, and I love this thing for many reasons. The first being that it looks like it's minifig scale. Like, as someone who has designed a minifig scale AT-AT, this looks right in line with the size of it, and I can just appreciate anyone who would take a vehicle like this from a property like Star Wars Rebels and build such a large MOC out of it. I don't know, that's just kind of cool. Like, we don't see these things a ton, but when people do detailed MOCs of these ships and vehicles that we just, aren't at the forefront of Star Wars, I have an appreciation for that. That shows just the dedication that people can have to this Star Wars fandom. But enough about that, let's talk about the actual vehicle. I think the legs are really what stuck out to me on this build. Just like the legs, pretty much everything about this design is more complicated and complex than the one that we see in the Empire Strikes Back, which is kind of funny, right? Like, you would think that maybe the design would be more simple and then get more complex over time, but I don't know why with Star Wars it seems to be the opposite. For example, the Venator transitioning to the Imperial Star Destroyer. I've heard people describe this change as just being indicative of the Empire's desire to have things more simplified and uniform, but this is still an Imperial vehicle, so I'm not sure that necessarily applies here. But the legs on this model just look very nice. He had to basically replicate the 3 circles at the top, what I call the hip portion, the middle knee portion, even the ankle portion have a circle built into it. So I definitely give him a lot of credit for being able to integrate all these complex shapes, especially into the legs here. The vehicle as a whole is pretty snot, which I always appreciate. There is a minimal amount of studs, which just overall makes the vehicle look a lot more premium, look a lot more detailed, and just a lot more advanced in my own opinion. I have to give him a lot of credit for this head design because there are a lot of things going on here, a lot of shapes that have to come together, and they all flow together pretty well. I think that the front cockpit area looks really good. I love the use of these inverted arches that kind of wrap around the bubble turrets on the chin of the AT-AT Walker. All the angles on the head just fit together really well, which is not a difficult thing to achieve. Like, if I were to say one thing about my AT-AT design, I feel like the angles on the head could probably be a little bit more seamless. They could come together a little bit better, but he doesn't seem to have nearly had that problem. It looks like he was able to get the head angles to come together pretty nicely. The body on this thing, I think, just looks incredible. I love this little, I don't know what it is about this gap here, that like these lines that go across the side of the body, but they just look really nice. The use of these ingot pieces to just represent some texturing on the side of the body also looks good. And one of the things that I love the most about this design, and this is something I am absolutely going to use at some point, I don't know when, is this little panel that he's included on the side here. It's basically a bunch of like panel pieces, and then in the middle of it there's like a 2x4 plate with some 1x2 tiles on top of it, and it just creates this nice like little rectangular pattern right here where the like edges of it are kind of recessed. I'm not doing a very good job at describing this, but you can clearly see it here. Like, that's a really interesting and cool looking build technique. I don't know if I've ever actually seen that be done, especially not for like a body of a vehicle, but it looks awesome to me. And this is like, if you're just looking for some ways to introduce some new greebling techniques into your designs of whatever, like you could make this a wall, a floor, whatever, like use this technique. This is a good technique. I definitely recommend this technique. One of the reasons this model stuck out to me so much is because I've talked about how I actually want to build one of these with the platform on top that the Ghost lands on top of, and just seeing this built actually, in minifig scale makes me want to try to accomplish that even more. I know that that would be a considerably more difficult task than just building an AT-AT Walker that can stand on its own, but I'd like to do that someday. I would like to build myself a Rebels AT-AT Walker with a Ghost parked on top of it. The next MOC is by the real Legoman Productions. It is the fight from the Clone Wars between Asajj Ventress and Obi-Wan, and they're taking on Darth Maul and Savage Opress. I believe they're on some sort of vessel, if I'm not mistaken. I believe this takes place aboard some ship, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong, please, Clone Wars fanboys, don't kill me. But I like this build so much. I actually know real Legoman Productions in person. He's a great guy, and I'm actually super psyched to review this thing on the MOC showcase. Where do I even begin? Let's start with the bottom. The cargo crates, I think, just make this build. Like, it really just conveys the feeling that you would get watching this scene progress on screen. All of the cargo crates everywhere, like, they're just, it's just a mess. Like, this room is literally just a mess, and that is exactly what you would want to convey with a build like this. I also like that they're not necessarily all the exact same cargo crate. Like, they're all mostly using that same basic design, but he did throw in a few unique cargo crates, which is kind of cool, like this one over to the left, and this one even in the middle. I love the weathering that he has included throughout this build with these tan plates everywhere. You can see that he, especially on the walls on that second floor, did a lot of cool snot techniques. Like, these are all vertical designs, and then there's also some snot techniques in the floor for this weathering to be present. Just a lot of nice weathering here to just, I don't know, give this a more dingy and decrepit look. Towards the bottom, there's tons of just bits and pieces all around, just whatever. Like, I think this is some sort of, it's like a closet or a supply, whatever, but there's so many just little pieces of machinery and whatever lying all about the MOC, and it looks so nice because those pieces add a nice splash of color to the build. Like, the build is mostly dark gray, right? But having those little pieces just kind of sprinkled around the build, you know, just adds in a nice touch of color. I love when people, especially with Star Wars builds, try to include color in creative ways, because we don't always get to have color in Star Wars builds. This is someone who has built Star Destroyers and things of that nature. Things typically end up pretty monochromatic in Star Wars, so if you could include color in any way, I urge you to do so. I really like the solution he came up with for Darth Maul's legs here. I've always felt that the legs on the Darth Maul from the Mandalore speeder are just too big. Like, it makes him especially tall, and he maybe should be that tall, especially at this point. I think this might actually be his second set of robot legs, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I'm not the guy to ask about weird Clone Wars facts like that, but I don't think this is supposed to be his giant robot legs. Maybe these are the smaller ones, but either way, I like that he decided to go with a I don't know, just custom solution to it, and I think it works out pretty well. One of the designs that I love in this build are these swords that are hanging on the wall with the chains connected to them. I don't even know what that's supposed to be. I don't know if there's actually supposed to be swords there. I have no idea, and I don't even think I need to know. That design just looks awesome, and it makes for some pretty cool looking wall greebling. The final thing I'd like to point out about this MOC is the minifig placement. Having the two heroes on the bottom level with the two villains at the top kind of converging on them is just a great way to use the space in this build. Like, you could have easily just had all four people fighting at the bottom of the MOC, and I don't know, that would just draw your eyes to the bottom, but having the two figures at the top and the two figures at the bottom kind of forces you to draw your eyes to maybe the second as well as the first level of the build, whereas if you only had them on the first level, your eyes would just be drawn to the first level and you wouldn't pay as much attention to the second level. I don't know, just little things like that where you force the viewer of whatever build you're doing to examine like all aspects of the MOC, or at least more than they would examine. I think that's a clever way to get people to maybe spend a little bit more time looking at your build. And our final MOC for today is this massive Utapau MOC from Max Feudal. I am in love with this thing. It's so funny that this MOC popped up seemingly out of nowhere. Like, I never saw any progress pictures of it. I just literally saw it pop up on Flickr, but I was just talking like a few weeks ago about how much I would like to do a large-scale Utapau MOC at some point, and I see this pop up, and this motivates me to want to do something like that even more, because this MOC just gets so many things right. The first thing I had to take notice to with this MOC is the rock work, because he did something really clever here that I've never really considered until now, and it came out so well. If you'll notice, basically like the base of this MOC is kind of at an isometric angle, like it's at a 45-degree angle. So if you look towards the left side of the rocks, you know, they're pointing towards the right and down, and then the right side they're pointing towards the left and down. And because he has the MOC basically at an angle, you can get these interesting angles for the rock work, which makes it look just so unique and awesome. Like, I love this. The fact that the platform on top is basically at 45-degree angle offset from that, I think really makes you take notice to just how the angles of the rocks here look really cool. I don't know if I can even explain that well. Hopefully you guys understand what I'm talking about. I think the water also looks awesome at the bottom. If you look, you can even see the boga splashing in the water, and even Obi-Wan's over to the side in the water. That's, I guess, representing the scene when he gets shot down by my man Cody. What a traitor. Over to the left side, we have some 501st troops doing some sort of mission. We'll see a little bit of that later on in the video. At the top of the build, there is a platform with some 2/12 boys, you know, coming in, attacking the droids. That's a pretty memorable part of the film, and I love that he incorporated that here. Over to the right side, there's a platform where Grievous is fighting Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is hanging off the side of that platform. I think we all know what happens next here. One thing that's really cool about this platform are, once again, these snot details he's included in it. Like, I love this. I would love to see the underside of this. Like, from this perspective, the platform looks like it's one stud thick, and I'm not sure if that's the case. Like, I would love to see the underside of it. Like, if he was able to achieve this platform with these details in it with only a one stud thickness, like, I would be thoroughly impressed. I'm not sure if that's the case. In fact, I would assume it's not, but I'm not going to take that away from him. I'll just, I guess, wait to see if we get more photos from this. But I love that he's been able to represent the pretty iconic scene where Obi-Wan's hanging off the side of the platform, uses the Force, grabs the gun, and then literally blows the crap out of General Grievous. That scene still gives me nightmares. This next photo is a side view of the MOC. So over to the right side, we can see that section where the 501st troops are taking on the battle droids, and there's a cool little bridge build in there as well. Over to the left side, I think, is a really nice looking hallway. We have more 501st troops making their way into the build, and even in this next photo we get a closer look at it, and the wall design in this hallway looks really nice. The fact that it's curved, I think, initially just makes it very aesthetically pleasing. Even the details in the wall, it's not a particularly complex design even. It's just, you know, some inverted slopes at the top, normal slopes at the bottom. There's those 1x4 bricks with like the rail slot in the middle, and then the 1x2 plates with the rail slot sticking off of it. And it just looks nice, you know, like pretty basic parts combined in a creative way to make a nice looking wall design. The floor, I think, really sticks out to me. I love the plate offset between those 6x6 tiles. It's just a really nice looking floor, something you don't see too often incorporated into Lego. This next photo is a different perspective of the platform that the 212 troopers have come into, and I love this scene so much. Like, I think it's kind of a cool scene when you see the 212 troops kind of descend onto these platforms and attack the droids, and this just reminds me so much of that. Like, he recreated it so well here in this build. This next photo is just a close-up of the boga falling into the water. I mean, I don't think we ever actually learned the fate of the boga in the film, but I'm hoping the boga survived this fall. Like, if I were to learn that the boga somehow didn't survive this fall, that just might break my heart. I'd also like to point out the fact that he's using the 1x2 light trans blue tile technique for the water, which I am a big proponent of. I've seen many different water techniques over my time of being a MOC builder, and I think the tile technique where you layer maybe other trans blue, or even not even necessarily trans blue, just other interesting colors underneath the water to get varying effects of depth, I think that is the perfect way to represent water with Lego, and that's what he's doing here. I appreciate that. And this final photo is just a look over at the left side of the build. It's just a better look at the 501st section, which is kind of cool. It's honestly kind of surreal seeing this many of that original 501st trooper all in one MOC. Like, there's just in this picture alone, that's what, 7 of them? Like, holy crap. Fortunately though, I don't have to feel jealous about this anymore. Like, I see this and I'm like, my initial thought isn't, oh, I could never build something like this with these troops in it, because we got 501st battle packs now. So if I wanted to build an Utapau and I wanted to throw in 7 501st troopers, I could do it. But that's besides the point. I love this little side battle that he's incorporated into the build here. Obviously, I mean, there are no 501st troops to my knowledge that are on Utapau, but that's the fun with MOCs, you know. You can throw in, you know, your different battalions of clones and even tell your own stories in these existing battles that have happened in Star Wars, and I think that's kind of cool. Overall, this just seems like such a fun build to me. Like, I could imagine setting up all these scenes, you know, having the 501st troops over to the left side, having the scene with the 212th troops on the platform shooting at the droids, and then even the scene with Grievous and Obi-Wan over to the right side. Like, it must have been just so fun setting up all these scenes, and it makes me as a builder want to do something like this, because Utapau is such a unique and cool Star Wars location that I think really deserves more MOCs done of it, especially on the large scale. But until then, I'll appreciate people like this guy doing this and doing it well.